Welcome to the Past Life Project. I'm Monique, hypnotherapist and regression specialist. Let me bring you into my world where just another day in the office is not your typical desk job. In each episode, we will be delving into the extraordinary realm of past lives through my own therapy practice, client stories and interviews, and conversations with practitioners that are utilizing past lives as a powerful modality for healing. Tune in to find out how people just like you are healing from a range of physical, emotional, and spiritual issues by exploring their previous incarnations. Are you ready to dive into the future of therapy? It's time to turn back time with the Past Life Project. Welcome to the Past Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Monique, hypnotherapist and regression therapy specialist. And my lovely guest today is Judith Corvin-Blackburn. Judith is an award-winning author, internationally known teacher, transpersonal psychotherapist, and shamanic minister, who for over 50 years has inspired people to step into joy, purpose, and inner authority to reclaim their true soul nature, so that collectively we can transform planet Earth into the loving, peaceful, creative place it is meant to be. She is the author of 4 books, offers online classes to empower one's spirit, activate to our higher frequency and starseed potential, and offers a global shamanic multidimensional mystery school. Judith, welcome. Just from your intro, I am just itching to dive into some of these things and what they mean. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you, Monique. It's great to be here.
Let's just dive right in. I'm really curious, how did you get started on this journey? I mean, you have such a wide array of education and experience, and I'm curious how it all came together for you.
Okay. Well, I've been around on this planet in this body a long time, so I've had a lot of years to do stuff. But actually, my spiritual journey consciously started in my late 20s. I had a profound experience. I was reading the autobiography of a yogi by Yogananda, which was a book that influenced many people back in the 70s, the 60s and 70s. And so I would read a little every day, and I would do yoga after I would read it. Little by little, my consciousness was opening. And so one evening under the full moon, I had this profound experience of grace. And prior to that, I would have said I was an atheist because I wasn't into the guy in the sky stuff. But after that experience, I literally experienced the divine. And I understood how many forms it shows up for us. And found myself on my knees with tears and realizing this was grace. It was really life-changing. I call it my conversionary experience. And it changed my life from then on. I had some spiritual perspective already. I was interested in astrology. I was interested in tarot and obviously was doing yoga. But I didn't really understand things deeply until I had that experience. And then it helped me, be able to identify more clearly when my ego was leading versus when my souls and my spirit were leading. And that shifted my life.
That sounds like a very profound experience, especially going from an atheist to having this moment under the full moon. It's very romantic, isn't it? And just opening up. And I feel like so many people, they describe having these experiences that are just unmistakable. You can't deny. It's so deep and profound that it hits you upside the head.
Yes, exactly. And most welcome hitting me.
Yes, in a good way, in the best way, in the most loving way. Maybe a smack upside the head sometime.
So that's how it began.
Where are you now, Judith? I'm curious. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do. I'm curious how it relates to our overall topic of past lives. How do past lives play into this, whether they're human, whether they're not human, whether they're even, you talk about multidimensionality, and I'm curious even on your take of, well, do you think they are all in the past? Are we accessing them all right now? Let's just dive right into all of it. I know that's a lot of questions.
Okay. Well, the part of this, of course, Monique, is that we get to, we understand we get past the third and fourth dimension. Well, in the fourth dimension, actually, it starts. All time happens simultaneously. So I have started saying other lifetimes rather than past or future, because really it all happens at one time. But our left brains can't get that. It makes us too crazy. It doesn't, we don't know how to fit it well. And I do think there are linear experiences. For instance, a past life, other life that I've been working with for probably 4 decades now, which was very traumatic and held my work back, held my voice back, and it's still creating some issues for me about that. I know around the time frame it happened in our linear timeline. So that's useful, I think, to have, I think to call it past gives people a perspective of sort of how we have been absorbing these experiences. And what we're learning now from epigenetics, I don't know whether you're familiar with it, but it's fascinating fields, right? Of understanding that our genes themselves carry that information. So we can come into different bodies as souls, but we're going to pull in the genetic makeup, so to speak, that will help us resolve things, learn lessons, shift ancestral issues so they won't get passed on. So for me, it was more about what I've remembered about this, somewhat through regression, but more. It's been a while, so it's hard to tell what really clarified this for me. But I lived in a beautiful village that was very higher dimensional, because there are pockets on the planet that have kept that, mostly in indigenous cultures, but I wasn't indigenous in this lifetime. And, but it was a place where every soul that came in was honored and seen for their gifts. And, things were simple but beautiful and very in harmony and aligned with the earth and with each other. And it was very cool. It's what we'd all like to see come forth now. That was all well and good. I had a good time. And, but at one point, my husband and I don't know whether I had kids at this point, but we traveled to what I think has become Athens, Greece. And it was just at the beginning when the patriarchy was taking over. And I was very concerned about what was going on. So ultimately, my family and I moved. And at that point, at least when the trauma occurred, I had 3 children at that point. And because that's very connected with some of the trauma. So I would go out into my yard and I would speak about the old wisdom, is what we called it. And people would gather. And I sort of knew there was a risk, right? It was not popular with the powers that be. But for quite a long time, they left me alone. And then they didn't. And so, as I remember it, and of course, memory's odd, but my husband had gone back to the village to take care of something. They swept in at night, dragged me away. I still had a nursing baby, and I was traumatized. And of course, they killed me. But I think part of the trauma, which I've just lately really understood, was that I didn't have the awareness of how people could act. I didn't have the awareness of violation and cruelty, because that had not been in my field. And so I think, and of course I was worried about my children. I have done a sort of looking down to see what happened after the fact. And I do think that, because I thought the neighbors might be scared to protect them. But in fact, they were fine. They were protected, and my husband got them back to the village. But still, that was, when we go through a major trauma, from my perspective, in another lifetime, then we have a series of lifetimes that are going to reinforce the trauma until we can heal it. And so, that showed up in different ways throughout. I've been here a lot. My soul's, it's not where I originated, but it's where my soul shows up quite frequently. So, and I do feel this particular lifetime, it's time is for me to heal that. And every time a new book comes out, it shows up in a different way. So my last book showed up in September, was released in September. So things have come up again for me to really have to clear at a deeper and deeper level. And I'm hoping this one will be it. I'm going to be 80 in a few months.
You're done? Done with the work and the digging?
I'll probably still be around for a while, but it's about time for this to be done. And it is interesting because, as we were talking before, I've had a ton of interviews, and I'm getting out there more and more globally. So I'm still doing what I've been afraid of, but I have to deal with resistance and it coming in other ways. So that's how, my personal connection, as well as the way I look at these other lifetime experiences. And then the other piece, I have one more that's kind of good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
And not traumatic. Okay. There's are you familiar with Dom and Her? It's a community in Italy. It's a very high level community. They were secret for a long time, apparently, but no more. Anyway, there's a woman there that had traveled to the States, close to where I live, and had done this series of workshops where you put your name in ahead of time. They have oracles there who give you readings based on it. And then she puts together ways that through this day and a half experience, you begin to unfold more and more of this particular past life that's showing up. And the first one I did, it turned out I was a Peruvian curandero, Peruvian healer, that worked very deeply with herbs, to the point where the moon cycles would get me out there at a certain time to deal with the herbs. But I also did psychospiritual work through the herbs, and I do psychospiritual work now, but while I've used herbs for my own use, I've never seen myself as an herbalist. I've never been drawn to that. But what I have been drawn to is understanding I have an intuitive sense of how the body works and what's healthy and what's not, kind of thing. And so that was recent, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. That put it all together for me. So we find out about our gifts also going into these other lifetimes that perhaps we haven't used to full capacity yet.
I think that's an amazing point, that there's a balance between the trauma work and also bringing in the gifts, the influential energy, because you can get stuck in digging as well too. You can become almost obsessed with trying to find something wrong in the past and stop living in the now. So I love that you talk about the gifts. There's gifts as well.
Right. And I do think that's a really important point about, I'll have clients that will want to start with the past life trauma. But first I want to make sure that they have also cleared this life, or because being in the now, how are these relevant? I mean, we choose, you know what, we might have lived thousands of lifetimes. We don't come back in a lifetime going, well, let's dig into those thousands.
Let's do all of them. Could you imagine?
You think a lot's going on now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would assume, and this is just a guess, you may have another awareness of it. You know, maybe we have 5 or 6 themes, probably at the most. So, and those themes hold, again, gifts and lessons.
I absolutely find the same thing as well in my work, is that there's themes, there's a group of lives and kind of like a network, and those are the ones that we're digging in now, not every single incarnation, because like you said, could you imagine? That would be more than over lifetimes and lifetimes of work, and that'd be so overwhelming, and you'd be so bombarded with that you wouldn't be able to live in the now.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to live.
Yeah.
When is the time to eat?
Exactly. Now I have come across, usually it's typically a starseed sort of trait, and these individuals will be able to pull past lives that aren't theirs, and they'll pull them towards them without really realizing it's not their stuff. And that's part of a learning process too, of like, okay, we don't need to heal everyone's stuff for them. So that's really an interesting thing that I've come across as well too, where you just start pulling like everyone else's data and you wear it as your own.
That's really interesting. I've not heard that before, but it makes total sense as people are becoming more empathic, right?
Yes.
They don't know how to sort, which is part of what we're trying to learn, but how interesting.
It seems like such a simple, basic question of, is this mine or is this not? But we forget so frequently. I forget frequently, especially when it resonates with our own life experiences. And then you realize, oh, this isn't even mine. This is, an interaction I had with a colleague, and like their energy, their stuff is kind of rubbed off on me. And all of a sudden I'm owning it and trying to clear and sort through it for them. Well, I don't have to do that. So I can just choose to let that go now. Yeah, it's really amazing how interconnected we are in that way, and don't even realize it a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah. But I appreciate that you talk about digging down into the layers too, and talk about that this has been many years, that even this particular lifetime that you've been working through, that there's no magic pill that all of a sudden you do the regression, you release the trauma, and that's it. That you still have to work on the behaviors, the habits, the thought patterns, the physical body, the nervous system. You have to do the work. It's called work for a reason. It's not just go into the life and release the trauma and then you're just blissfully okay now. I think a lot of us wish it was that easy.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right.
Very common wish. But it doesn't work that way.
I think it's actually robbing us of the experience to transform, because we transform under that pressure, as hard as it is at times.
Yes, that makes good. That makes good sense. It's always a process. And I stress that a lot in my work. This is not an overnight fix. It may be, as we're evolving, we'll be able to do it more quickly. And it's better not to expect it too quick, because it won't happen that way at this point.
Yes. And I'm curious if you found a change in the quickness of how things happen now versus even when you first started your work. Do you feel that there's a difference in this work on Earth and when you started?
Well, that's a really reasonable question. And I would have to say I don't know. What I've observed, as the therapy that I do, is there are modalities that have come in that really do speed things along. Like if you're dealing with trauma, EMDR and brain spotting. There are about 4 or 5 new modalities that that move people along, which I don't do myself, but encourage people to get. And I do think that does speed it up. That's probably the best way I could answer. But my intuitive sense is time is speeding up. We're speeding up. New generations are coming in with different gifts. And so I think those changes will become more visible. Let's put it that way.
It's interesting. It's almost this kind of, I don't know, energy of excitement. Like you said, that there's new things and things are coming quicker. And it's really amazing to witness that. And people are able to communicate more. You think about even 10 years ago, there wasn't such access to online workshops and conferences and being able to go to an online school and reach these people in this capacity.
Absolutely. And that's where I think COVID was a real gift in many ways, because, there was a huge shift because people were staying home. And so I know for me, I had to learn how to teach online, which I personally love. and it's so exciting because now I can get students from all over the planet. And they don't, people don't have to make plane reservations and find a place to stay and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. You just show up in your living room and be there. Yes. Yes. Well, I'm curious, Judith, to hear more about your work and how you work, and even, going into what you speak about in your books or in the mystery school that you offer.
Well, I suppose what really perhaps synthesizes it, because I do different things, but my teaching has really expanded, and quite frankly, I used to find it hard. And this was part of, by the way, that was a symptom of that past life I was talking about, because it wouldn't be hard when I was actually there teaching, but it would be hard beforehand, and then I would find myself wiped out afterwards. And really, it's only been in the past year or two, all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm done with that. It's over. And I can just have fun teaching. I think that the classes are even better. And it's a way to not only get information out, but I work very experientially. So I do a lot of guided meditation, and then part of what my students love the best is not me. It's what happens in a circle where they all share with each other. And so that's a really powerful piece of what I'm doing lately that I really love. And as we talked about, I've been doing lots of interviews, which I also love. They're typically fun. I meet incredible people like you. The hosts I've met, again, from around the world have been really great. And just to feel how this work, if you want to call it, and this awareness and consciousness has emerged everywhere. So I connect, that's exciting to me, and it kind of fuels my work, if you will. And when I work more, I call myself a transpersonal therapist. And what that means is that I work with people to uncover all the programming that gets in their way of connecting with their souls and their gifts and their wisdom. Much of that, including clearing the emotional body, because in our culture, we don't have tools of what do you do if you are violated? A natural response is anger. If you're a kid in a family that's violating you, it's not safe to be angry. What do you do with that anger? It hangs out with you. So helping people clear different I'll call it stuck emotions, which clears the emotional body, which gives more access to who we really are. So I incorporate a lot of that in the work I do one-to-one.
think we both work in very similar ways as far as those stuck emotions and bringing that awareness to, if they're not coming out, they're not just disappearing, they're just going deeper in, and then they cause more turmoil and illness and physical symptoms as well. That, these migraines, this IBS, this, chronic this and that, it didn't just kind of come out of thin air. It's been a long time in the making, usually, of like even your example of this anger, of pushing this anger down because it's not safe to feel it.
Exactly. So, and it's always good to hear others working with this, because it's really important, as you know. It's and it's I won't say typically, I will say it is still bypassed at times in different ways, where people can get a lot of this lovely spiritual information, but they haven't cleared the emotional field. So really, they can't authentically integrate all of it.
It's a really interesting point as well. It's like we try to bypass and just move on to, I don't know, the fun stuff. Exactly. That it's fun. And I don't want to go through all that emotional human muck, right? Exactly. I find a lot of starseeds are like that too. Like I'm just fed up with the body and the emotions, and just like beam me up and get me out of here. Right? Yes. And then we forget that, no, we are in a human body, and the human body has its needs, and we can't bypass that. And if we do, even like you experience, then we get physical symptoms and we get tired, and the body just can't keep up with dragging it after a while.
And, I also think people imagine that it's going to be very painful working on the emotional, but it doesn't have to be. I'm not claiming it's going to always be easy, because it's not. I call it hard curriculum. Our souls have chosen various curriculum. And when we come in, what are we going to learn this time around? So it's an advanced course. What typically makes feelings hard is that we judge them rather than have ways to let them flow out.
Yes, that if we just allowed them to be messengers and not judge them as this is a good or a bad feeling to have, that's, I think, a lot of even anger. You speak about anger. I find with a lot of women that I work with, anger has been really judged as something that not allowed to feel, and maybe sadness is safer. So I'm trying to express the anger by being sad, but the anger is still sitting there under the surface. Or that, anger can be a fuel for creation and creativity. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's all in the way how we release it.
100%. 100%. That's so important, because, I explain a few things when I work with people around that. And women typically have been scripted and programmed to not allow that anger, where men are often programmed where all the feelings have to show up as anger because they think that's the only manly way to do it. So a lot of abusive men really are very scared, but they're expressing it through anger. And of course, with anger, how it gets expressed, as you said, I love that messenger idea. That was great. How it gets expressed is important. If it's really important when you work with it that it be expressed in a non-harmful way, and often not directly. I really encourage people to work with it on their own. I give them a million techniques. And then if it's someone in their life that they're feeling angry with, after they get the energy out, then they can be assertive. Then they can communicate, hey, when this happened, I felt really angry and this is what I need. But they won't be bombarding with the energy of the anger. That will have already gotten released. And again, it's not overnight. It might have to happen many times before it really moves on its way. But it also, when it's not expressed, it creates a severe third chakra issue. So our sense of authority and our sense of self is really interfered with. And reclaiming our right, I call it honoring our anger, which is identifying expressing in a non-harmful way. And ultimately it releases, or it gets little by little less, it has less energy the more you work with that. And one way I help people discern if it's sadness or anger, it's how do you feel afterwards? If you cry and you're crying out sadness, there's a sense of release. If you cry and you feel more powerless and dragged down, that's anger. Crying doesn't do it. And that's when to go to these other techniques.
I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the techniques. I think that would be something helpful just to, I don't know, assure others that it is a healthy emotion and there are techniques that you can use to release it in a way, like you said, that doesn't harm yourself or others.
Exactly. I'm glad you added yourself because that is important. Yeah, actually, when I was in graduate school training, I had a great supervisor and who taught me that there were 3 rules. You don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt anybody else, and you don't hurt things, Now, some people, I know they have these rage rooms now, and that's fine because it's safe and people are just throwing things to release them. But typically, you don't destroy things as part of this. So it's all it, 3 rules. But the easiest technique usually for people is write a rageful letter. And you start with, if it's toward a parent, which often it is because people are clearing old childhood wounds, you start with their name, not with dear mom or dear dad, because you want to take how we put parents on a pedestal through those names and have certain rules. We want to get rid of those. The other rules with angry letters are you're not to worry about grammar or sentences or how articulate you are. And you're to be as nasty and vicious as you possibly can. And you begin by saying, okay, this is to do no harm. So, we know thought can provide things. So when you start with the clearing by putting, this is to do no harm, it is simply to release, then you don't have to worry about how vicious you get. And I really encourage you, really break all those taboos, visualize, you can visualize smashing their face, and I don't care. This is good. You're not hurting anybody. Anger is not, dainty and pretty. It is powerful and passionate. And, and then the other rule is you make sure nobody can find it afterwards, either because you rip it up, make sure it's in a safe place, because if the person you're writing to finds it, it's going to be wounding because it's going to be vicious and nasty. So that's all you have to do. And, I have people that start out with, I'm very angry because blah, blah, blah. And then by the end, they go, fuck you. And I go, yes, you did it. Right?
Something to celebrate.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to activate that, but then the feeling gets, as I'm sure, Monique, it's all energy. So you take the stuck energy, you give it a voice in a non-harmful way, and you begin it, and because energy goes in waves, there'll be a wave of that, and you'll feel the release. And that part is fun. And so it'll help you do it again. And again.
It's motivation.
It's motivation.
Yeah.
And then really violent visualization. Again, starting out with this is to do no harm. The energy is not to travel to anybody to do harm. The earth can handle it. And then to just visualize being furious and you can rip people apart. It's not going to hurt them. Again, it's a way that energy gets honored because it has that passion and intensity and it's been stored up. So it's not like, oh, somebody made me angry yesterday because they said something. This is like, years worth of being stored and buried and compressed. And so it needs a passionate way to come out. Sometimes just wringing a towel. And if you have privacy, you can scream, or you can grit your teeth and scream, and it won't be as loud. It won't upset your dog. Those kinds of techniques. And people need to find what works for themselves. The other thing that I think is important is if it's scary and or people go, oh yeah, I want to do this, but then don't. Oftentimes it's because they have their own internal fears and beliefs about anger. And so just writing about those, I'm scared to get angry, or I think I won't be nice if I'm angry, or good people and spiritual people don't get angry, whatever the belief is that we're carrying.
Yes. And I love that you talk about it, that it's safe to do these processes, to do these things in our mind, and to set even those universal boundaries, that it's not doing any harm, that it's just as a releasing process, and that the universe, that nature can take that and transmute it. Because I feel, at least in Western society, there's so much fear about our thoughts, that if we have these thoughts, that means that we're bad people, that, they need to be pushed down and medicated away until we're just, complacent, kind of unemotional zombies. So I love that you touch on that piece, that it's normal. It's a normal human experience. And it doesn't mean that you are going to act out on these in the real world.
Right. I have one more example that I think you'll find interesting. I was teaching for a community college level in a medium security men's prison. I was teaching psychology, and this was the class was called the psychology. I think it was called the psychology of adjustment, but it was really about self-awareness. So I taught a piece on anger. Now, these guys, I would say, because I taught probably for a couple of years, I probably taught about 6 or 7 courses there. And I can say I only had one person in my class that I would say was so imbalanced I would be concerned. Most of these guys, they were shipped down from Chicago. I was in central Illinois, for drugs and gangs and stuff like that. But they were good guys. I mean, really, they were good folks. And I got along great with them. And I did an exercise where I had them work with anger. I taught about anger, and then I had them do some violent visualizations. And before we started and I talked about it, some of them would go, hey, Ms. Corvin, can't we just do it? I'm like, no, we're going to do it. We're not going to act this out. We're going to just imagine. And I had one student, he was very bright and just really evolved on a soul level, I believe. And when I had them share, he said he had been put in segregation, which is punishment in prison. If you act out in a way they decide is dangerous, they'll throw you into a segregation cell where you see no one, and it can be for 2 or 3 days. And he had just gotten out of segregation. And so he said his experience, and it was so profound. He said, I was so angry at this guard because the guard that did this, wasn't being fair. This was not what was going on. But after I did this visualization, I realized he was just ignorant. And he was able to forgive him. Now, I'm not saying that happens in one fell swoop, but that just shows how powerful it can be.
Wow. It's amazing, and shows how things can get misconstrued and misunderstood, and people can end up kind of going down paths that aren't, I don't know, they never intended to. That when you lack that self-awareness and those positive outlets, and just even you coming here, and it's like giving them permission to be able to express themselves. And maybe, like you had said, there wasn't that safety growing up in a home environment to express themselves. It's, I don't know, such a beautiful thing to be able to give that permission slip of you're allowed to be human and work through these emotions.
And you're allowed to be authentic because, as you say, otherwise we're like emotional zombies. We're not going to be, and we're not really living, we're not really connected to ourselves or our lives. I do believe that's changing a lot.
Or even you talked about too, you touched on this belief system of, oh, I'm not allowed to be angry because I'm a spiritual person. And I find there's a lot of spiritual teachers that talk about it's like this non-duality, this ascension that we have to be at this place where the monk on the mountaintop, instead of embracing that our humanness, that we have duality, and if we're judging it, then that's bringing the suffering from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because, so I don't want to go into duality. We're towards the end. But what I'm going to say is that when you have opposites blending, you have something really nice. When you have them opposing each other, it doesn't work very well.
That's really interesting, isn't it? You think about even, classic, like the masculine and feminine, and how there has to be energetically a balance between the two. And anytime you can look in human history, even the energetics, so when they're out of balance, that it's not a pleasant experience, no matter which way the pendulum swings. Yeah. Yeah. So perhaps it's learning how to allow the pendulum to just kind of be in the middle of ground and bring both sides in. And I mean, we talked about the anger, but then also being able to release it gives you a bigger capacity to experience joy. And if you can experience all these other emotions strongly, that means that you can also experience joy in your life as well, too.
100%. There's a great, it really is a great gift to be able to do that. And we carry light and dark because we're all interconnected. And what we most have reactivity to is also a piece of us that we can honor and integrate so it doesn't do harm. We carry as much dark as we see out there because that's how it got out there. But for the majority of people, nobody would act it out. So if you let the dark thought in and you're not going to act it out, you just go, that's interesting. Ooh, where'd that come from? I didn't know I would have thoughts like that, but okay. Hey, I'm noticing. And my ability to notice and then let them move on or integrate if they need to. That's one way we change the world.
That's beautiful. I feel like working in these past lives, these other lives, and even in our past, our ancestors, allows us to give that perspective that's outside of us, that we can so harshly judge these things and these thoughts that come from within us. But when we flip the perspective, it's like, oh, I have all of a sudden compassion for everything that this other person went through. Yeah.
Yes. And that's when that ability to go there with that compassion is when we go sort of naturally into these fifth and sixth dimensional frequencies.
And that's your goal is in your work, correct? To bring more of that here on Earth.
Yes, to bring it right. Exactly. And to support the process that people are going through so that we can really see it show up. In the news. Wouldn't that be something? Hey, today everybody was feeling really good. And they were all kind and they were interested in, if you were different from them, they knew that was a gift because you had something to teach them. Those kinds of things.
Yes. What a beautiful vision. Thank you for bringing that and everything you do into the world, Judith. I'm curious, is there anything else that you would like to touch on that we haven't had a chance to cover?
Well, I think the underlying theme, and it's sort of my ongoing, often at the end of interviews, frankly, is be gentle with ourselves. Because we're human, there's no way we can be perfect. It just doesn't exist. And yet we've been programmed to believe we're supposed to be. And that if we don't feel perfect, we're supposed to act that way and pretend. And that causes a great deal of harm to ourselves and really to our relationships and anything else that we move ourselves into. So I would just say, be gentle. Have compassion for yourself, which allows you to have compassion for all others.
And let me thank you for modeling that as well, too, because you went in with courage and talked about your own personal experiences and how long it took you to excavate down and dig down and be able to do that and have compassion for yourself, even if it took years and years to do. It really is a practice in patience and self-compassion, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It takes as long as it takes. That's might be trite, but it's true.
Yes. Well, sometimes it's better to small bites than just to throw the bomb in the water and explode it.
And that's really, I do want to just speak into that for a minute. That's really important because if we take the small bites, and I feel very lucky because that's been pretty easy for me. I haven't had to have the explosion in the water. Now, some people do. I mean, we all have different process, and it's not like one is better than the other. It's kind of like, what do you want in your life? Do you want the bomb because it's exciting and then you'll really work with it? Okay. Sure. That just wasn't in my nature.
It's funny, I'm laughing because I am absolutely that person and have learned from those experiences that maybe that's not the best way to go about things. I even said back when I was birthing my children that I'd rather have a really intense short labor and just get it all over with. I don't want any of these 2-day labors. Give me the intensity in 4 hours and let's get it done. And for a while, I approached my personal healing journey in the same way and learned that it's not a sustainable way to go at it. And you can deplete your physical body, your emotional body very quickly, that it's not a race. It's not a finish line. It's not like, well, I'm going to dig out all this muck and then I'll be done. And then I can just sit back for the rest of my life. But it's a process. It's evolution. We're constantly changing. And even like you had mentioned, there's new layers that come up with new experiences and you can become aware of, oh, it's that old fear again. Well, I guess we're just looking at it from another perspective and we're releasing it now with maybe some more ease and grace than we were before.
Beautiful. That was great. And yes, and there you're a great model for people that it's okay to throw the bomb in the water, but you might decide at some point, let me try something else, see if I like it better.
Yeah, right. And there's a gentler approach to that doesn't, cause so much destruction. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something that I enjoy speaking to with clients, that it doesn't have to be that way. It's like learn from what I went through, and there's an easier way. Let's just do it with ease and flow and less disruption to your everyday life as possible. Yes, that's great. Well, thank you, Judith. Thank you for being here and for all the work that you do and having this chat. I'm glad we got to really dive deep into the emotional aspect and the human nature. And it's interesting when we have this work that explores multidimensionality and starseeds, and we tend to go into all of that stuff. And I feel like, oh, we went down into the humanness, that we may have all of that, but we are humans and we can honor all of that messiness. That messiness is okay. Yeah. It's like a kid that's creating and you're allowed to splatter paint everywhere on the walls and you can be messy. It's like, that's your past. You're human. You're innately supposed to be messy.
That's great. That's great. And I agree, because as starseeds, we know things can be really great in those realms. And because often starseeds don't feel comfortable in their bodies until they work with it a lot. It often is very hard to make the choice. Okay, let me go down. Let me look with the shadow. Let me work with those feelings. But again, I'm an optimist. I do think more and more people are doing that, embracing that, and having really good results.
And that's the goal at the end of the day, right? Is to bring all of those beautiful results.
Exactly. So thank you, Monique. It's been great to be here.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for joining me today, Judith. And I hope everyone tunes in next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Past Life Project. For more information how I can help you to access the wisdom of your subconscious mind to support deep healing and transformation, visit my website at moniqueglover.com. If you loved what you just listened to, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.